Today, sister.
Hey, brother, how are you? I'm great. Always glad to be here with you. Hey, everybody, what's up?
Hey, what's going on? So, guys, I don't know if you guys can see us yet. If you can see us, give us some likes and shares and thumbs up. If you're on YouTube, definitely hit that thumbs up button because that's what helps support the podcast and gets it out there. We're big on intellectual chocolate. That's what we call the platform, and that's what we do. We bring you the chocolate, but we bring you the power, and the power comes through the knowledge. And people like Attorney Nicole Compton, who's actually watching right now. It looks like Nicole's in here.
Hey, Nicole.
Hey, and I'll tell you, she's a lawyer. She's bad as hell. She
She
knows her
sure is.
stuff. Yes, and the thing about it, the thing I love about people like Nicole Compton and yourself is that you're able to through this space, you're giving students those detailed pieces of information that they might have missed or never got in college.
Never got, right.
Yeah, you're helping them really understand how the real world works, how it works as an African American, which a lot of people, they just don't learn it in college. You go to a white university like I did and like you did. It's not that it's a terrible experience. It's just that it's not one where they're deeply connected to blackness. Their strongest interest in black people. At least when I went to the University of Kentucky, the strongest interest they had in black people was, can you dribble a basketball or throw a football?
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of real. Now Michael Jacobs says I'm in the house and I'm damn proud of it. And you should be proud.
Awesome.
You should be proud. He's one of the talented 10th. The talented 10th to me are the black people who plan to build, because we're going to build. The future is being built right now, but a lot of people don't see it. But their children will see it. Their grandchildren will see it. But people like yourself see it. People like Marshall Jean and Lorraine Styliste and others who are in here, Nicole Compton, etc. You guys see it, and I know it. So first of all, Dr. Jutra, let me just start by asking you. I reached out to you because I saw a story, and the story was about student loan debt and how black women actually lead the pack in terms of how much student loan debt they've accumulated. For many of them, it's crippling. I'm sure you, like I do, know 50, 60-year-olds who still haven't paid off their student loans.
Absolutely.
What was your initial reaction when you saw that story and that result?
Yeah, so Boyce and I often share news stories if it relates to finances and certainly within our community. And you sent me the story, and obviously it wasn't a surprise to me at all. I deal with this every day, Boyce, when I speak to people. So the article basically stated, it was an Essence article, the one you sent me, but there are many studies. So African American females, so here's the good piece of data. African American females are the most highly educated demographic within the United States, period. Okay, that's something very few people may know, so absorb that piece of information. And so if we just pause there, if we just stop there, it seems like all is great. But as I caution you, as I often caution people, as they absorb any bit of information or any piece of data, to not just stop at the surface. If you just stop there, you'll think all is well. But when you dig a little deeper than that, you realize that with that acquisition of education comes a double-edged sword. Not only are we the most educated demographic within the United States, we also have the highest level of student loan debt in the United States. And the student loan debt situation has hit a crisis level where they're saying outside of the mortgage crisis, student loan defaults could very well be the next crisis. People defaulting on student loan debt. So if you look at it at the surface, you say, okay, African American women are the most educated demographic in the United States, and it's not a huge leap to think that we acquired debt to do so, so we should have the most amount of student loan debt. So that on the surface is not necessarily the issue. The issue is all the fallout from having all of this student loan debt. So let's look at some other statistics. This is why I often preach in my class, Boyce, that when you look at a statistic, you cannot look at one data point alone. You don't use one data point alone to draw a conclusion. It must be used in conjunction with other pieces of data to paint a full picture. So again, if you look at that one statistic, African American females are the most educated demographic, you would assume, oh, we're the highest paid, We're doing the best. We're doing the best financially across all demographics, and that couldn't be further from the truth, right? So here's the real deal. We are paid, generally speaking, about 63 cents on the dollar when compared to a white male. Okay, so just keep in the back of your mind, the most highly educated demographic in the United States, the African American female. That's me and other women in this platform today, in this session today. I'm watching all over the world. Okay. 2, we have acquired the most student loan debt. Okay. 2. 3, we are paid 63 cents on average. A study that came out late last year says on average, African American females are paid 63 cents on the dollar when compared to their white counterpart. So let's stop right there. So if just on the surface, white men make more than us and they have less debt, take that alone and they're already leaps and bounds ahead of us. Okay. Now add that in conjunction with the fact that many African American, unfortunately, a number of African American households are led by one parent, and often too many times that is the female. So that is another burden on the African American female. So we're the most educated, don't make as much as the white male, have more debt, and have the struggles of having to oftentimes rear the family. So you put that all in conjunction with each other, and it doesn't paint a pretty picture. B. So when I come on the scene, I'm usually speaking to women after the fact. They have their degrees and they're coming to me when they're at their wits' end and they're saying, Dr. V, I need help. I want to buy a house and I can't. See, this is the fallout from this whole thing, boys. So you go and you get a degree, you get a master's or you get a terminal degree, and you think you're gonna make all this money. But if you don't understand how debt works against you when you're trying to acquire other debt, like a mortgage, then you are left in a position where you really are stuck between a rock and a hard place. You're not able to get a home. You're not able to get a home. You're not able to borrow to get a decent car, and it's a really bad situation. And these are the situations I come across when I deal with African American females and trying to help them with their finances.
Hey, everybody. If you just came in here, I'm talking to Dr. Venetia Dutra. She has a PhD in finance. She is a respected expert in the field of finance, and she's also taught for many, many years at the college level. She's actually earned tenure at her institution that she was with for a very long time. I'll let her decide if she wants to talk about that. We're talking about student loan debt. We're talking about whether or not these universities are helping Black people or hurting them. We all grew up sort of knowing, I think accurately for the most part, that education was valuable. We know education is valuable. There's no question about that. The question is college valuable for everybody, and does it work for everybody? What I have seen, Dr. Dutra, is that there's kind of a cost benefit sort of trade-off.
Absolutely. That's where I was going next. Absolutely, boys. Right.
That we make that cost benefit, trade-off, and we go ahead and we take on the debt because we're assuming that, we'll take a step backward to go, one step back goes 2-3 steps forward. It almost looks like now that people are taking 4 steps backward and going 1 step forward. And
I absolutely agree.
That math does not add up. I mean, 1 minus 4 is -3.
Right.
And so, if you look at the family, if you look at it like a relay race, where maybe my grandparents took 2 steps, my parents took 2 steps, I'm supposed to take 2 steps. Well, if I take -3 steps, then I have taken us back to 1 step as a family, as a community. So how do you feel in terms of the impact on generational wealth that the college student loan debt crisis has kind of had on the African American family in America?
Oh, it's highly detrimental, Boyce. I mean, here's the fact. I come into contact with people every day who were just encouraged, and this is 2018. They were just encouraged to go to school. There was very little guidance on what degree to get, what degree they should get, what the salaries are, and this is what you don't get. So I am an advocate of education. We both are, and I'm not saying that a college education is bad. I have multiple degrees and wouldn't take them back. The issue is we have to learn to do things in an informed manner. So like you just said, Boyce, everything really comes down to a cost benefit analysis. And this is how I try to ask people to train their brain. If you're going to go to school to get $80,000 in debt, $60,000 in debt, and you think getting that $60,000 in debt to get your master's is going to jump your salary from 60 grand to 80 grand, you better do the math. First, you better make sure you're going to get that salary bump that you're expecting. That's one. Two, you better make sure the cost benefit analysis makes sense. So here's a prime example. I just talked to someone, and this is what makes my job the most fulfilling. This is what makes me feel the greatest. Out of all the things I do, I just had a conversation with a young mother who's sending her daughter off to undergrad up in New York, Albany, somewhere in Albany. And she says, well, we can go. She took her daughter down to Spelman to visit Spelman. And she said, but if we go to New York has this, you go almost free. I don't know. New York is doing something where college is almost free or something like that. This is my understanding, which is great. And so she said, but we went down there. We love the school, but I think the school is like $40-something thousand a year. It's a private school. Spelman's private. So I said, well, let's look at this. What does she want to do? And I think she said, well, I'm not sure, but I think she wants to do something like psychology, sociology. And I said, well, let me stop you. Are you aware of what the salaries are? And this is what you don't get with a college education. Your advisor is really not going to sit down and talk to you about this unless you know these questions to ask. As parents, we have to start sending our kids, to degrees that are going to help them live a life that they want to live. It's great to want to save the world and hug trees, but you need to do that if you're a trust fund baby, because if you plan on buying a house and saving money and retiring at a decent age and taking care of your kids, you can't live in this country really off of $30,000, $40,000 anymore. Not when you have kids. It's just not possible. In most large cities, maybe if you live in a stick somewhere in the country, but then you're not making anything because no corporations are there, right? So we have to do a better job as parents in leading our kids to professions of tomorrow, to professions that pay, and we have to start making wiser choices around the schools we go to. I always tell people, go to the school that's giving you money. If the school is giving you some money, then you go. Because at the undergraduate level, we're really all teaching the same thing. Boyce was teaching at Syracuse. I was teaching at a school in Denver, We use the same book for investments. Harvard uses the same book for investments that I use. We all teach the same fundamental theory in finance and Investments 101. We teach the same stuff. So do you want to pay $120,000 for that degree, or do you want to pay $15,000 for that degree? You have to be smart about it. Don't get caught up in the name, because at the end of the day, when you graduate and you cannot afford to live, it won't be worth it. When you cannot afford to take care of your daily expenses, it won't be worth it. And I see it all the time, Boyce.
Well, you know what? I think it's an excellent point. I didn't think about what you just said, but it's kind of funny when you think about it. Because when you and I were kind of going through the hell of our PhD program, we had classmates that went to all different kinds of institutions.
That's right.
We had teachers who had attended the best institutions.
That's right.
We knew, you just kind of saw that. And the thing is that, everybody kind of taught the same basic stuff when it came to the undergrads. Now maybe at a high level, like research-wise, there's a difference, right? Like somebody.
Yes, research-wise, there's a difference. Yes.
Right. Somebody that gets a job at Harvard is going to be typically a better researcher than somebody.
Exactly.
Hired at Wichita State, right?
Right.
But nobody cares about research outside of the people that are doing it.
Right. Exactly.
Nobody cares. Nobody
cares.
Like, you really, think about this. In fact, it's kind of one of the weird paradoxes of going to or paying a lot of money to go to the elite institutions, because when you go to those schools, how often have you seen, some guy who maybe he barely speaks English, doesn't give a shit about his students, and but he's hired at Harvard because he's a great researcher.
That's right.
And the undergrads hate him. They hate his class. They're like, but he's brilliant, right? He's brilliant. He's right. He won them. He's a candidate to win the Nobel Prize, or he's written these great papers, but that doesn't trickle down. It doesn't really trickle down in terms of how well he can teach you, basic finance,
That's right.
How to make a budget, how to buy a share of stock.
It does not always correlate. That's exactly right.
Exactly. In fact, in many cases, I would dare to even say that the teachers at the sort of teaching schools are better teachers than the teachers at the top research schools. You know, a lot of times the teachers who go to those teaching schools, all they're thinking about is how to teach well.
Right. And that's what their compensation is based off of. I mean, you have to be a good teacher at a teaching institution. At a research institution, you have to be a great researcher or you're gone. At a teaching institution, you have to be a great teacher or you are gone. It doesn't matter what your research is, JF or not. You know what a JF is. These people.
Yeah.
And to our point, they have no clue what that is, right? The average person has no clue what we're talking about. So yeah, teaching makes all the difference. And see, to your point again, I am a huge proponent of college education. I am. But there are so many things that we don't teach at the college level that are so necessary for everyday fundamental living. And so we graduate with these degrees and we're thrust out there into the world and we have no idea how to manage our day-to-day life, let alone our finances. Finances come last. And so again, I was going to go into this whole piece. I recently had this consultation with a young lady who was trying to buy a home. She logged into my real estate class. And, when they have significant or personal issues, I say, just ping me afterwards and let's talk one-on-one after the class. And she's telling me she makes close to six figures and cannot buy a home. She says, I don't understand this, Dr. V. I don't understand it. I did everything right. I just had this conversation with her voice. This is so timely. I did everything right. I went to school. I was the first one to go to school. My mom encouraged me to go to school. My grandparents, everybody pushed me to school. Everybody chipped in. I did. She had a lot of student loan debt. She said, I did the right things. I have a job. I'm raising my son. We're in an apartment, but I just finished my degree and now I want to buy a house. This is what I did it for. I did this so that I could pass this legacy on to my son and buy a house. She said, I went into a mortgage. I went into the bank and they told me I don't qualify for anything. Not for where she lived. I mean, she qualified for something like $180,000. Where she is, you ain't getting nothing for $180,000. Not even a little condo. I mean, it's just not possible. She would have to move to the sticks. She said, I don't understand this. I said, well, let's walk through the math. I said, the answer is always in the math. So I pull out a spreadsheet. We're on Zoom and I share my screen and I just ask her to pull down her debt. She said, I don't really have any debt. I said, what's your car loan? She told me, she says, pretty decent car loan, almost paid off. Was a great steward of her finances, had a good credit score. And I said, well, where's your debt? She says, well, I do have student loan debt. I said, well, how much is your student loan debt? She had $1,600 a month in student loan debt. $1,600 a month in student loan debt. And so I walked her through, and we do this in my real estate class. I walked her through what's called underwriting requirements as set up by Fannie Mae. So we have underwriting requirements. And these are the requirements that any lender is going to go through to say you qualify for X, Y, and Z. When your debt to income ratio is greater than 36%, now let's say 40%, we'll round it there, that generally just knocks you out of the park, period. You just don't qualify unless you have one of two things, a great credit score and a lot of money in the bank. But generally that number is about 36%, 36 to 40%. So if you just do the reverse math on that, if you have $1,600 in student loan debt, 36% of that, so she'd have to make the equivalent, that's about $4,500, okay? And at $4,500 a month, okay, gross, $4,500 a month, she would have to make double that to be able to afford a mortgage that's about $1,600.
So it's $9,000 a month or $72,000 a year.
Right, because just her student loan, that's $1,600 a month. If she was making, so $4,500 a month is about $54,000. The average income, okay, let me make sure this is clear because this is a really important point. The average income in the U.S. is about $45,000. Okay. If you're in a larger city, you're probably making more. So I said, let's assume you make about $55,000. Okay. Let's say the average income is about $55,000. I'm going to jump it up a little bit. If you're bringing home $55,000 a month, you are bringing home monthly, gross, this is gross, before Uncle Sam puts his hands on it, before you pay any bills, about $4,500 a month. Okay, are you with me? 36% of that, 36% of that is about $1,700. So if the underwriting requirements to qualify for a loan state that your income, your debt to income ratio needs to be no greater than 36%, that student loan debt has knocked her, that is her 36%. That student loan debt represents 36% of your income if you make $54,000 to $55,000 a year. There's no room for anything else. And again, that's just the student loan debt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what you're basically saying is that those who graduate from college with a big student loan bundle to repay,
you're done.
You kind of have a mortgage without a house.
You have a morttage without a house. So you're not building
right.
equity. That's exactly right. You have a mortgage without the house.
What I would compare it to is it's almost like how you have you might have a guy that has, 5 kids with three different women, and then he goes and gets married and has 3 more kids. Well, if you marry a man like that, I mean, you can, but he's got a lot of obligations already.
Right.
Before he
even gets to you.
So
his ability, he can even do anything for you.
Right. So you need to really take that man and chop him in half, because that's pretty much what you got is a half a man.
Half a guy.
No whole
Financially.
Man. Right. Half of him is left back in the 2000s. You know what I mean? Back when he was in making babies. Right. So really, the same thing is true with student loan debt. Student loan
Absolutely.
Debt, it's like having a bunch of little financial babies mamas and then trying to go get married, and it don't work. It doesn't work because the bank basically says, look, you owe 80 grand, and you owe 100 grand to this school, and it makes sense, Dr. B. If you, as you mentioned earlier, if you're in a field where the money's good and you're doing well and you can and you're disciplined, that's another piece. Most people ain't really got the discipline to attack their debt. I mean, let's just be real. Think about this. How logical is it, Dr. V, to think that in a country where people can barely save $1,500,
right, that
they can really realistically, we can realistically expect the majority of people to repay $60,000. $60,000. I mean, what are the odds? What do you think?
Well, I mean, again, it seems like such an overwhelming task that many people just ignore it as if it's not there. And the reality is you can't put student loan debt in a bankruptcy. It's not going anywhere. And that's another fallacy. People think, well, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to file for bankruptcy and I'm just done. I'll just start over 7 years, 6 years. It'll be gone. You cannot. I wish Nicole's on here, our attorney, one of our resident attorneys. You cannot put student loan debt inside of a bankruptcy. You have to pay that back. So it's just a bad situation, boys. And to your point again, we talk about college level education. It's great for so many things, right? But it does not do well in a number of areas. And giving you a practical education, particularly when you're African American, because things are very different for us. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, I'm sure we'll get comments and people say, "Oh, no, it's fair," but that's BS. Things are very different for us. And if you're a female, that's a whole nother level of difficulty, right? Income-wise, discrimination-wise. So someone has to teach our kids the correct path and the correct way to go about doing education. There's nothing wrong with acquiring education. There's just a way to do it. When your kid comes to you and says, "Mommy, Daddy, I want to go to school to study music," you need to say to your child, after you do your research and you realize that music, you're going to go into debt at the same level that my child that's going to go do something that's really going to make some money. We're both going to come out with the same debt, right? Because the school's $50,000 a year regardless, right? But you're going to come out with a music degree making nothing. What are the prospects? We need to be smarter about the choices that we make, boys. When your kid says, "Hey, I want to go to school to become an actor. I want to go to school." I'm not telling you to step on their dreams. I'm not telling you to do that at all. But I'm telling you there's a difference between, paying the bills today and finding another way to live out your dreams or your hobbies some other way. Showing some local theater ensemble. If you're in a big city, every city has a local ensemble theater. You can volunteer and sharpen your skills that way. In the meantime, you got to raise your family. You have to take care of your kids. You have to live. So we have to learn to train our kids and direct our kids to degrees that are going to make them a decent living. Otherwise, they're going to be back in your house, borrowing money from you, and they're not going to be very happy. Having debt, boys, having the burden of debt is the nucleus of so much of our stress. The lack of financial wherewithal is the nucleus of so much stress within the African American community, that if we don't become better stewards across the board of our finances, whether it's student loan debt, trying to impress every damn body by buying cars we can't afford and dressing and wearing shit we can't afford. Now I'm cursing. When I get passionate, I start cursing. Let me bring it down. Then we'll always be playing the catch-up game, and we'll live in this constant state of stress that is, quite frankly, killing us in our community. So, again, if you just stick at the surface, this is the problem with having information presented to you and just ingesting it as it is given. This is the problem with this 24/7 news age, where we want everything easy. We want all the news just given to us and tell me what it is and tell me how I'm supposed to feel about it. We have to stop that. We can't afford that. So if you look at the data point as presented, African American women are the most educated demographic in the United States of America. You would think that all is well, and that couldn't be further from the truth. So we just have to be better across the board, B. Mute.
What I would say is that, you're absolutely correct. And I actually pulled up a chart here that I wanted people to see. The first chart that I thought was interesting, and I grabbed some of these stats, online before we started, is if you look at the share of student loan debt, African Americans are kind of being hit with the biggest burden. You see Hispanics are down here. I guess that's 16% of Hispanics have student loan debt, 28% of whites, 42% of African Americans, 42%. Now, I have a theory on this, Dr. V.
Okay.
I have a theory. I have a theory for everything. I just want to.
Okay.
And let me give you my theory on student loans. I thought about it this morning while I was out running.
That's what researchers do, by the way. We always come up with theories.
Yes. While I was running, here's my theory. Okay. My theory is that, that there is a way, there's like almost like a special swag we have when it comes to taking on student loan debt. If you look at our culture, right, not everybody in the culture, but the community as a whole, the way white folks analyze us when they're trying to sell us product, one of the things they found is that Black people like to look sharp, look good, have nice stuff, stuff like that, be trendy, stylish. Like that's more important. That's more important than planning for the future. That's more important than like, okay, I'm going to get ahead in 20 years. It's like, no, why would I want to get ahead in 20 years when I could just look good now? And why would I really want to be ahead if I can just make you think that I'm ahead, right? A lot of people are faking it, just like on social media. People,
that's right.
They're not living their best life. They're living their best lie. L-I-E. Take out the F, right? So basically, that swag. I saw that in college. I would have friends I remember who would, where it was very easy to go and sign to borrow more money to have nice stuff.
Yep.
I knew a young lady one time who went to college, and she was at a school, at one of those real expensive white schools with worthless degrees. And she lived in a nice city. I don't know if it was Chicago or New York or whatever. And basically, this school, which tuition was maybe in the 40s, $40,000 a year, they'd let her just borrow whatever she wanted. And then there was an extra allowance for living expenses. So she said that, I could have borrowed just what I needed to go to school and then a little bit to live or gotten a job. She said, but I wanted to be comfortable. So instead of borrowing, say, $40 a year, she borrowed $65, $70 a year. And so and so she's living, I think it was downtown Chicago in like some sort of, special apartment building with doormen and where doctors live, because she wanted to live it up. She said, I really wanted to live it up for those 2 or 3 years. And now she is 35. And her student loan debt balance has not dropped one iota, has not dropped one bit.
And actually, in many cases, I have people whose student loan balance is going up because what they have to do is put it in deferment. When you put it in deferment, or if you can't pay, then that that interest is still accruing. So your balance may not go up, but that interest is accruing. I get this a lot of times, like when they come to me in tears, my student loan balance is not only not dropping, but it is going up. How is that possible? And again, this is just a natural consequence of not understanding math and how money works and how interest accrues. If that interest is going to keep accruing whether you're paying or not. So it's just a very, very sad situation. That then again, we always like to end our talks, or at least offer nuggets of encouragement or how to proceed wisely. Again, I would offer a couple of things. One, as parents, sit down with your kids. Don't just encourage them to go to school. That's wonderful. I'm going to encourage my sons to go to school, and they will, I'm sure, when they get of age. But make sure you sit down with them, whether it be a counselor at the school or someone who is a professional currently making money, okay? Have them sit down with you and explain to you what professions make money, what the prospects are for making money. You'd be surprised, boys, how many people don't take that into consideration. Generally, people say, what do you want to do when you go to college? And you ask a 16, 17-year-old who doesn't know anything about life, barely knows anything about themselves. And we're asking them, keep this in mind, we're asking them to make a very serious choice at an age where they know nothing about life nor themselves. Okay, so that is key, number one. So somebody needs to sit down with them and help guide them through that process. It's okay to want to hug trees. It's okay to want to study bugs. We need these things, and I'm all seriousness. But the reality is, if you're going to make that choice, make sure you understand what the fallout for that really means. That you're going to probably start out making, if you can even find a job in the United States, some people have to even go abroad for these things, something in the 30,000s. I mean, a lot of these archaeologists, they don't make any money. They have to apply for grants. Their salary comes from grants. You don't get grants, you don't get paid. So make sure your kids understand the gravity of the choice they are making. And as a parent, it is our responsibility to help them navigate this space at a time where they don't know any damn thing. That's one. Two, if you're going to take out student loan debt, you should, obviously you can't afford to pay cash, and that's the case for most of us. That was, my case, right? If you can't afford to pay cash, don't live off of the student loans, because all you're doing is kicking the can down the road, but that can only gets heavier. As it picks up interest, that can gets harder to carry. So get a job. It'll teach you a lot of life skills. One, getting a job while you're in school will teach you life skills. Two, it will mature you. Three, it will teach you cash and money management, because you will appreciate money when you have to work for it, relative to just filling out a sheet of paper and mysteriously a $10,000 check shows up in the mail. I mean, imagine being 17 years old, 18 years old, you fill out a sheet of paper, you say, oh, do you want 20,000 or do you want 40,000? Well, hell, I want 40,000. The check's just going to show up and I just cash and I live my life. So require your kid to work. Even if part-time, I worked part-time, I had great grades. I mean, it doesn't kill. You're not killing your kid by requiring them to work. It doesn't make you a bad parent by requiring them to work. And the third thing it does is it helps your kid, it helps your child, because they still are a child. I don't care what you say, 18, I don't care what the law says. At 18, we don't know shit about anything, okay? There are people in their 40s still trying to figure out life. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So it also helps you figure out what you like and what you don't. This is why we tell people to get internships. As a professor, we used to always try to encourage our students to get an internship. Why do we encourage them to get an internship? Even if it's not paid, even if it's not, because you learn what your skill set is. You learn your weaknesses, you learn your strengths, you learn what you like, you learn what you don't. And so you can shape the rest of your life accordingly, doing something that you're good at and that you actually enjoy. So if you can't pay, encourage your kids to work. Make sure they're not taking out money, like you in your example, boys, to live off of, because they're not doing anything but deferring pain, significant pain at that.
I agree with you. And by the way, everybody who's watching, if you just came in, I'm talking to Dr. Benita Dutra, from the Black Business School, and we are talking about student loan debt and how a lot of these universities are ruining Black families financially by sort of piling on so much debt that they can't repay it. Also, Black women have the highest student loan debt levels of anybody in the United States. By the way, I want to remind everybody, please make sure you hit the like button, share button, and subscribe button, and the thumbs up button. Take 1 second and do that to make sure you're following sort of what's happening here. These are intelligent conversations. This is not coonery. This is anti-coonery. This is coonery disinfected. This is the antidote or antidote. Yeah, the antidote. Yeah. To all the ignorance that we see in media. We're two college professors, and I think the reason it's important that you're hearing from two college professors talking to you who care about you is because I personally didn't meet a college professor ever until I was 17 years old. And I did not meet a Black college professor until I was 19. And and to this day, I've never once had a Black college professor in my class. I've never once ever, and I went to school from the age of 18 to the age of 31, because it took a long time to get my PhD. 13 years of school. I never had a Black college professor, not one time. And here you got two. You guys have two. We're here to talk to you. We're here to teach you. Dr. Dutra actually teaches in the Black Real Estate program in the Black Business School. It's an extraordinary program. You can feel free to check it out. Go to theblackrealestateprogram.com. That's theblackrealestateprogram.com, and it'll change your life. It'll get you into the first of three major pillars of wealth. The three pillars of wealth that jump you over the fence from being struggling, from the struggling class to the class that gets a chance to build wealth. One is real estate. The other is entrepreneurship. The other is stock market investing. In the Black Business School, that's what we teach, and that's what we want everybody in the Black community to learn. That's what we want everybody in the Black community to teach their children. We even have a real estate program for kids in the Black Business School, and I encourage you. Remember, Dr. Dutra, you learned about real estate as a kid. Your parents got you involved in real estate young.
At a very early age.
Yeah, and here you are. You're one of the most respected Black real estate experts in the world, and if it wouldn't have happened if your parents hadn't got you started. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And this is why I always emphasize the importance of our intervention. I say our because I'm a parent as well. Parent intervention in our kids' life. We cannot expect our children, particularly when they're about to start college, to make that leap on their own. We have to realize the influence. I had this conversation, actually I was talking to Nicole about this not too long ago. When you think your kids aren't listening, when you think your kids aren't watching, they watch everything we do. So understand that everything we do is an example. When you're spending your time gossiping around your kids, whether you think they're listening or not, when you're spending your time on the phone gossiping with your girlfriends or someone, then that's what your kids think is important because they think you're important. You are the most important thing to them in their life. You are their sustenance, right? So the things you do become important to them. So you have to be careful, the example you set and what you present to them. So when you talk to them, when you spend your time talking to them about life, when you spend your time talking to them about wealth, that becomes important to them. That becomes the center of their thoughts. And what do we know about thoughts? Our thoughts drive our actions. So if you have your thoughts on little things, you will do little things. You have your thoughts trained and positioned on doing big things, your actions will follow. So be very careful what you do and the example you set for your kids. Talk to them about wealth, whether you have it or not. Whether you have wealth or not. Whether you think you have wealth or not. Talk to your kids about money. Talk to them about being a good steward of money. And for heaven's sakes, make sure you are living that walk. And you too are being a good steward of money. And last thing I'll say, Boyce, and you pointed to this as well, we spend a lot of time in our community, and this is to our detriment. We point fingers a lot. And listen, I'm the first one that will talk your head off about the impact of segregation and racism. And I mean, it has decimated our community in so many ways. But at a point, we have to stop pointing the finger and take some ownership for some stuff that we have the responsibility of changing within our own community and certainly within our own home. Okay. Mm-hmm. So all I'm asking us to do is to stop caring so much about what other people think and what other people are doing and live your best life. Just because Johnny drives a Benz doesn't mean you need to drive a Benz. And if you really knew the truth, like Boyce said, living your best life, Johnny probably struggling to take care of his responsibilities any darn way. So stop trying to model something that's really not fit for you, that's not meant for you. Do what's best for you to get you and your family where it needs to be. That's it.
Well, you know what? I want to tell you something, Dr. V. I want to lighten it up and show you guys. I think Whitney.
We got too deep on him.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, Whitney. Well, sometimes I get super deep, and I want people to know I have fun too. So I want to play this for you, and then I would say that this made me think Whitney Houston might be alive, but I don't want to give her too much credit. But check this out. Okay, so this young lady, I'm gonna play this, and there's a reason why I'm playing this clip. Her name is London Lowe. She's a singer out of Chicago, and then I'm gonna tell a story about London that connects to exactly what you said earlier about making that education decision. So check it out.
Okay.
Clock strikes upon the hour and the sun begins to fade. It's still enough time to figure out how to chase my blues away. I've done it right up till now. It's the light of day that shows me how. And when the night falls, my lonely heart calls. Oh, dance with somebody. I wanna feel the heat with somebody. Oh, I wanna dance with somebody. With somebody who loves me.
Okay. So first off, I have to say, I was impressed with her ability to hit those Whitney Houston high notes.
She hit them. She sure did.
I think it takes bravery to do a Whitney Houston.
Very brave.
Right. So she does this on her Instagram page. She'll take a song that most people should never touch,
right?
And we'll sing it, and people love it. But anyway, London Lowe, she lives in Chicago, and let me tell you about London and why this relates to this conversation. It wasn't just my excuse to hear a great Whitney Houston rendition. She actually, because she's so talented, was accepted without much training into the Berklee School of Music in Chicago, which is, a really big, great school. But check this out. So she gets there, and, the tuition's out of control. The tuition's insane. And she just said, that's just too much. I don't think I can pay, 40, 50, 60,000 a year to go to school to get this degree. So what she did was, so I said, well, what did you do? She said, well, I decided I wanted to create my own educational program. And I said, so what does that look like? She said, well, I got, I spent some money, got me a good, vocal coach. She's got coaching on performance, on business, everything that you have to do to be a successful artist. And she also, tours. She, instead of being in class taking notes and taking old English anthropology classes that have nothing to do with what she's doing, she's like, I'm in the mix. I'm learning. Life is my university. I've got teachers all around me. She's being mentored by successful performers. She's putting out music videos. She's really in there. She's really doing it. And I said, I think that's probably better than college for a lot of people. Not so much all the time, but for her, I said,
for her, absolutely.
She's already touring. She's already making money. She's only a few months in, past the time that she decided not to go to Berklee. And I'm thinking, if she spent 4 years in school and went say $250,000 in debt, or 200,000 or 150 in debt, she'd be stuck with all this debt. Her career would have started later. And questionable as to whether or not it would have made her a better performer or gave her a better ability to pursue her dream. Because I was like, look, because I'm friends with her, I said, look, if you want to know business, just come to the Black Business School. We got classes for $99 a month, and I got badass business professors that can teach you everything you want to know about business. I brought in people like Damon Dash and Tariq Nasheed and others who are in the industry. Damon Dash built Jay-Z. So that's why we brought him in to talk to our students about how things work in the entertainment business. D1 is a rapper who's about maybe 27, 28. He's made millions of dollars by now as an artist, and because he understands business. He came in and taught our students for a while. So what my point is for people is that I think that there are ways, if you're creative and smart about it, in this age, there are ways where you can really get a good education,
Absolutely.
whether you go to college or not. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely agree. I mean, there's nothing more to add to that, really. I absolutely agree. And in her case, I guess there's nothing more to add. I guess I will add. In her case, I mean, I think that's a perfect example. We talked about this internship example. Sometimes the best education is actually getting out there and doing it, and just doing it. So I applaud that sister. That was a money move. That was certainly a money move.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and shut it down. And I saw a couple of questions. I'll ask a couple of questions over here, and then you can answer those. Let's see here. Someone says, Mayor says, how do we determine the difference between a teaching institution versus a research institution? What do you think?
Well, generally speaking, research institutions are going to be any Ivy League, any. When you look at like U.S. News and World Report publishes every year the best schools, and anything in the top, I'd say 35, certainly 35, 50 probably even, is going to be a more research intensive type university. And if you look at the description at the schools, when you go to the websites, they'll tell you what their emphasis is. They'll tell you, they'll pride themselves on what their strong suit is. One of the best teaching universities in the state of Kentucky or Texas, or whatever. If it's a research institution, it's going to be an Ivy League, or the leading state school for that state is 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10 going to be a research-oriented university. Voice, unmute.
Yes. And when I do that, that means I'm finding the button.
Oh, you find it. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought that was that Baptist church finger, when you're walking in front of the church and you got to.
Lord. And Moses said unto Jacob. All right. So, So another question Nicole Compton had, attorney Nicole Compton, she was asking about, the name of the school, like how much value does that have? Should that not be taken into account? That if you go to a school that has a big name, that can create more opportunities. What are your thoughts on that? How do you balance between, taking on more of the debt versus, taking it on for a good reason?
Nicole, as I would expect, has a wonderful question we get often. I think you do have to balance that. I mean, there are certain schools that have networks that are vast and far-reaching. So if you go to a school, we'll just use Harvard. Harvard is known to have a very vast and far-reaching alumni network. So that means, and they look out for their own. So that means no matter where you want to go, and it's that network is very much integrated into your academic process. So upon graduation, they find out what you want to do, and they reach out to alum first, and these alum pick you up. So that certainly has significant value. But again, you still have to weigh it. And Harvard gives a lot of scholarship money anyway, particularly if you're African American and you're smart, and you have to be smart to get into Harvard anyway. Harvard gives away a lot of, they are extremely well endowed, which simply means they got a lot of dough, and they give a lot of dough away. So again, you got to weigh it. If you're coming out of school 6 figures in debt, my opinion, with very limited information, is that in general, it's not worth it. I don't care what the name of the school is. It's so difficult for people to pay down credit card debt, let alone to start your working career, to start your adult life 6 figures in debt. It is just devastating financially. Even for medical doctors. I mean, I've sat down with medical doctors, attorneys, people coming out making 6 figures and still finding it hard to breathe because they cannot overcome the $3,000, $3,500 a month student loan debt they have. It's just a lot. Right.
Well, I agree with you. I think that 6 figures in debt can make sense if you possibly make sense for like maybe medical school, possibly law school, or if you're extremely disciplined. And what I think also students are missing is when you get that piece of paper from that university, it makes us believe that there's a job out there waiting for us. And sometimes there is no job waiting for us. And so
Right.
I think,
Right.
so I will go as far as saying that I think entrepreneurship is more important for Black people than college.
Yeah.
If I had a choice between being a college graduate with a bachelor's degree and being an entrepreneur who really, really knows his stuff, that's literally spent a couple thousand hours really nailing down the skills and techniques of entrepreneurship, I would rather be an entrepreneur because remember that Black people, that you live in an oppressive society. And an oppressive society means the institutions are typically run by your oppressor. You may not be a fit for those institutions. They're going to run by their rules. They're not going to treat you with the same dignity they treat everybody else. And also the same opportunities won't be there for you. So freedom is very important for Black people.
Absolutely.
It's been 100 years fighting for your freedom. And just this morning when I was running, there was, I was running with Dr. Alicia, and we're jogging down the street, and this white guy drives by. He's a friendly looking guy. He didn't look dangerous or anything. He's a nice person. We got nice white folks, that we see. We haven't seen no Klansmen lately. And the guy said, "Gosh, I wish I was doing what you're doing instead of going to work right now." And when I heard that, what that made me think about was the last 25 years and how when I was 19 or 20, I was planning. I said, I don't think I can work around in some of these environments. It doesn't fit me. I'm not happy. I did an internship, a really prestigious, high-paid internship with General Electric back when I was a sophomore in college. And I was 20 years old, making a lot of money, living in a very nice place. And that was when I learned that it didn't matter how much money I was making. If I went to work and I hated my job and I hated that I worked for, it wouldn't matter. So I remember going to work, I was depressed. My manager we just didn't see eye to eye. I looked at my future and said, oh my God, I don't care how much money I make. This is not going to work for me. And it was kind of sad because in a way it was like the death of one dream with the birth of another. The first dream died because my original dream was like, okay, I'll be this corporate guy and I'll get an MBA and I'll go and make all this money. And then I was like, man, I don't want to do this, and so years later, here it is 25 years later, I'm jogging down the street and I ain't got to go to work. I'm not thinking about getting time to punch the clock. And I'm thinking about how, plans I made 20 something years ago play out right now in terms of what I do on a daily basis. And so what I'm encouraging everybody to do is plan. You got to plan. If you have no plan, then don't be surprised when you fail. If you have no plan, don't be surprised when things don't work out. Nothing works out. It's like playing basketball and thinking the ball's going to go through the hoop when you just threw it straight up in the air. Like that's not how it works. When you hit a jump shot, you look at the basket, you square up, and you follow through, and you get open. Right? That's what you do. You plan to hit a good shot. You plan to win a game. You plan to win a battle. Black people don't plan enough. As a community, collectively, we don't plan enough. If I said, hey, let's have a big forum, everybody get together. I want all Black people to get together so we can make a plan, a master plan. It's going to take discipline, hard work, but if we get together and do this, we're going to be very successful. I bet you there will be about 10 people in a cricket that show up. but if some Negroes down the street, if Lee Daniels is down the street saying, hey, y'all, we going to have a Tyler Perry Empire Fest, you know what I mean? Like whatever, with barbecue chicken and whatever, like all the food, all the food's going to kill you. There'll be thousands of people down there. That's why you can't win, because you can't plan. You'll never win a battle if you can't plan for battle. If you can't plan for war, then don't expect to be attacked and don't expect to win. It's not going to happen. That's it. That's my 2 cents. I'm done. Did you have anything else to say before we head out?
No, I think that was a great way to close. Just change your thoughts and you change your actions. Just train your mind on positive things, train your mind on successful things, and your actions will follow. Yes. That's it, my people.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody, thank you for hanging out with us today. It was real. It was fun. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins. This is Dr. Venetia Dutra. Dr. Dutra teaches real estate. She's an expert. She has a PhD in finance. Very, 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 very smart, as you saw. If you want to take her class, she meets her students every Thursday night. They talk about everything in real estate, from how to buy a home to how to get in commercial property to all kinds of how to flip a house. If you want to know any of that, there's 2 options. One is theblackrealestateprogram.com. Theblackrealestateprogram.com is where Dr. Dutra is. Also, you know about my friend Andre C. Hatchett, who teaches at theblackrealestateschool.com. I love Andre as well, and I support that. So I say try them both and get different perspectives. They both bring in experts. They both have a lot of experience and everything else. So give something a try and learn about that pillar of wealth and bring your children. That's what's going to get you ahead. Make sure you hit the like button, share button, and subscribe button, and the thumbs up button before you go. Please, please, please make sure you do that. Also, last but not least, don't forget Dr. Dutra. I haven't mentioned it to her yet, but I'm inviting her to attend or to appear at the All Black National Convention. Have I mentioned it to you, Dr. Dutra? Have I invited you yet?
Michelle has spoken to me about it.
Okay,
You haven't invited me yet.
Consider yourself invited. All right. So Dr. Dutra will be at the All Black National Convention along with all your favorite Black people. You know,
Right.
from Dr. Claude Anderson to Michi X. They see Michi X. Have you seen Michi X on Fly Nubian Queen?
Of course I have.
Oh, she's a badass. I'm trying to get my daughter Patrice to come out. Naturally, Treese. We're gonna have. I mentioned Dr. Claude Anderson. I'm gonna invite Jay Morrison to talk about how he built the Tulsa Fund. I'm gonna invite Dr. Kevin Cosby, who has built millions and millions of dollars where he used to actually start an HBCU. He's the largest megachurch pastor in the state of Kentucky. He got his church to back him to go buy and resurrect an old HBCU that had been shut down. It got shut down during integration.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. Wow.
Yeah, this school is Simmons College. Simmons College was built by former slaves who wanted to educate their kids. That's why whenever Black people tell me that it's impossible for us to have our own schools and our own school system.
Oh yeah,
I said, these were former slaves. They had less money than you and less opportunity. And
right.
And they built a school and they educated thousands of Black people. They had a medical school, all of this. And then,